So Brian Steele, the man who notoriously represented Young Thug in the YSL RICO trial, is catching a little bit of backlash online right now because it has been announced that he has officially joined Diddy's legal team, right? Brian Steele is a defense attorney. This means that he is now going to be representing Diddy at his upcoming trial, which as of right now is slated to start on May 5th in New York. Now, Diddy's team actually just filed paperwork this morning saying in a letter to the judge that they wanted to delay the trial a little bit longer to give them the necessary time to prepare his defense. This comes after a new superseding indictment in the case dropped earlier this month and included additional counts of trafficking and transportation to engage in solicitation, right? So Diddy's two attorneys, Mark Agnafilo and Tini Garagos, previously requested at least a 2-week delay during a hearing on April 14th, where Diddy pled not guilty to these new charges and also accused prosecutors of failing to share their evidence, which would be needed if Diddy wanted to, have a successful defense. Diddy's next hearing is tomorrow, April 18th, and that's when we will find out if his request for an extension is approved and if Brian Steele is even going to be able to represent Diddy in this case, because Brian Steele is licensed in Georgia. This case is happening in New York, so he's going to have to go through some loops to get approved to even be on this case. And so him deciding to join Diddy's legal team is why he's catching a little bit of backlash online at the moment, because a lot of people have pre-convicted Diddy, right? They have it in their mind that Diddy is guilty, and so they look at Brian Steele jumping on the defense team as a bad thing because a lot of people have already made their mind up about the whole Diddy situation. Now, Brian Steele is somebody that really did make a name for himself during that YSL RICO trial. He was in the courtroom putting belt to ass and really doing a good job defending Young Thug. This has made it to where people in the hip hop community have grown to kind of respect Brian Steele, right? We've seen him being super friendly with Young Thug, not just as like his attorney, but like as a friend. Some of y'all might remember he was doing a lecture at one point. Young Thug called him on FaceTime. He was letting Young Thug talk to the class that he was lecturing. We have seen music get dropped where people are name dropping Brian Steele, like this right here.
Yeah, my lawyer Brian Steele. Yeah.
We even seen the boy Drake on his most recent album with Party Next Door dropping a song titled after Brian Steele. It's literally just called Brian Steele. And again, the reason for that is because everybody got to see Brian Steele in court representing Young Thug to the fullest, even to the point where he was willing to go to jail himself. At one point during the YSL trial, Brian Steele was held in contempt of court. And this is important because when we get into some paperwork here in a minute, this will come up. But we seen him held in contempt of court, sentenced to like 22 days in jail. He requested that he be put in the same cell with Young Thug if that was going to be the case so that they could work on the RICO case, right? It's wild stuff, but it's what got Brian Steele a lot of respect in the community, right? I'll play a quick highlight compilation for you guys.
Supposedly announced he's not testifying and he'll sit for 2 years, and then supposedly that's this honorable court, or excuse me, let me rephrase that. This court supposedly said, I can hold you until the end of this trial. Ms. Hilton supposedly said actually all of the defendants. Every time Mr. Copeland comes in the courtroom or out of court, he's escorted by a DA's office investigator. You see that? This court is observant. You're not just sitting there in a cloud. You see exactly what's going on. This is like communist Russia.
I'm going to order that you be taken into custody, incarcerated in the Fulton County Jail for no more than 20 days for this contempt. Those 20 days consisting of every weekend for the next 10 weekends.
I'm going to file a notice of appeal, but for whatever reason that doesn't take, and you don't give a bond, then I'd ask that I can be with Mr. Williams and we work on our case all weekend, for all those weekends. Otherwise, I can't prepare.
All right, take Mr. Steele into custody, please.
Since the trial ended, Brian Steele has been pretty much living it up with his new reputation. We even seen him making like promotional videos, rocking the new Spider clothes, which Spider notoriously makes clothes that hip hop artists wear, right? He's done a good job maintaining his public image. But as I've stated throughout the video, today it looks like that might be shifting a little bit because people noticed on Pacer that this right here popped up. It was a motion for Brian Steele to appear on behalf of Diddy, which people are saying is quote unquote ruining his reputation. All right, so we got the document right here. It says, pursuant to Rule 1.3 of the local rules of the United States courts for the Southern and Eastern District of New York, Brian Steele hereby moves this court for an order of admission to practice pro hoc vici to appear as counsel for Sean Combs, the defendant in the above captioned action. All right, and we'll go over what the pro hoc vici means here in just a second, but let's continue. It says, I am a member in good standing of the bar of the state of Georgia, and there are no pending disciplinary proceedings against me in any state or federal court. And he attached a certificate of good standing. He said, I have never been convicted of a felony. I have never been disbarred or denied admission or readmission by any court. I have been administratively suspended, then reinstated and censured, but then vindicated by courts, and provide the facts and circumstances surrounding those instances in the attached affidavit pursuant to New York's local rule 1.3. He dated this April 15th and submitted it to the court. This is the official filing for him requesting to represent Diddy, but there is that phrase in there that says he wants to appear and practice via pro hoc vici. Pro hoc vici is pretty much a law, a code that attorneys follow, and what it is simple, right? Most attorneys go to school, they get their degree, then they have to go pass the bar exam. The bar exam is normally on a state level. So if you live in this case in Georgia, then when you graduate, you'll go take the Georgia bar exam because that'll show that you are familiar enough with Georgia law to practice law there. But it does not mean that you can then go to California and practice law because the law is different. If you wanted to do that, you would need to pass the bar exam for that other state. In this case, it would be New York. However, this can be circumvented for a few different reasons. So according to Cornell Law, one of the top law schools in the country, it says in New York, an attorney and a counselor at law or the equivalent who is a member in good standing of the bar of another state, territory, district, or foreign country may be admitted pro hoc vici, one, in the discretion of any court of record to participate in any matter which the attorney is employed, or two, in the discretion of the appellate division, provided that the applicant is a graduate of an approved law school, right? And it says right here that attorneys can be approved to participate in pretrial or trial proceedings if they are associated with an attorney who is a member in good standing of the New York bar, who shall be the quote unquote attorney of record in the matter. That's the official description. Long story short, pro hoc vici is a way for an attorney to practice law in a state that they are not licensed in. 9 times out of 10, this will be via an attorney who is licensed there. Basically, an attorney licensed in New York says, hey, this other attorney wants to work with us. I'm going to be working with him, letting him know what the local laws are. And because he's got me, who is a licensed attorney in this state, he should be allowed to work this case with me, right? But don't take my word for it. In the words of Phil Harding, who is an attorney, this is what pro hoc vici means.
3 words. Pro hoc vici. This is what it means. Sometimes I have a case and maybe it goes to New York or South Carolina or Idaho. I'm only licensed to practice here in Colorado, but I can still try that case in those other jurisdictions if I get another attorney to pair up with who will sign off and say, I'm telling this guy about the local rules. Pro hoc vici.
Right, so with that, you should now understand why Brian Steele is probably going to be allowed to represent Diddy, right? But there is a little bit more to this. In addition to what we read earlier, he also filed an affidavit and a sworn statement. And in that, it says right here, comes now Brian Steele, applicant for admission to practice pro hoc vici, and pursuant to LR 1.3, makes the following sworn statement. Since November of 1991, I have been licensed to practice law law in the state of Georgia, and I am a member in good standing of the bar of the highest court of the state of Georgia. A certificate of good standing issued within the past 30 days by the Supreme Court of Georgia is attached hereto as Exhibit A. He said, I have never been convicted of a felony. I have never been disbarred or denied admission or readmission by any court. However, subject to that statement, I disclose the following information. Since 1991, I have practiced law in the state of Georgia. From 1990 to 1991, I worked in the state of New York, where I had become a member of the New York bar in 1990. So he's just establishing that at one point he did pass the bar in New York. It just isn't the most recent bar. In 2005, I learned that I had been administratively suspended from the New York State Bar for non-payment of fees in 1999. I had not been aware of my obligations to pay annual fees for a license that I was not maintaining, as I promptly paid all outstanding fees and was reinstated in June of 2005, at which time I resigned as a member of the New York State Bar. On November 13, 2001, I was held in civil contempt for refusing to proceed with trial after a trial court in State versus Janice Carlisle denied my client's plea of former jeopardy, and I promptly filed a notice of appeal. Court of Appeals of Georgia granted an emergency stay of the trial, finding that the trial court had been divested of jurisdiction and that I was wrongly held in contempt. Then on June 10, 2024, I was held in contempt by a Superior Court judge in Fulton County, Georgia. And this is where he's talking about the RICO trial, where he basically told the judge, if I'm going to jail, put me in the same cell with Thug. He said, when the judge wrongfully ordered that, I revealed privileged information. The misdemeanor contempt conviction was reversed by a unanimous Supreme Court of Georgia on October 22nd, 2025. And I think that's a typo right there. I think he meant to write 2024 because obviously it's not October 2025, but typos happen. He said there are no disciplinary proceedings presently pending against me, and I have never been the subject of disciplinary proceedings. And 5, by applying for admission to practice before this court for purposes of representing Mr. Combs, I understand that I am deemed to have conferred disciplinary jurisdiction upon this court for any alleged misconduct arising in the course or in the preparation for the proceeding. Right? So he's just saying that he's giving the judge the go ahead to hold him accountable if he gets approved to represent Mr. Combs and he does something that the judge doesn't like. Dated the 11th day of April, signed Brian Steele. Right? So this is all the documents that were filed. This is how Brian Steele is trying to get to represent Diddy, and he's probably going to be successful. Diddy has several lawyers that are licensed in New York that Brian Steele would be working alongside. There's really no reason for this to get rejected, but I've seen a lot of people online trying to cancel Brian Steele over this, and it's because he represented, their favorite rapper, and he worked hard for him and got this reputation, and they feel like representing Diddy is destroying that reputation. But at the end of the day, bro, Brian Steele is a defense attorney, a criminal defense attorney. This is literally what he does. It's the reason why he was Young Thug's attorney in the first place. He goes to court and he defends alleged criminals or people that have been accused of criminal activity. It's not surprising to me that that is exactly what he is trying to do, because at the end of the day, that is his job. I think Diddy, seen the way Brian Steele worked and moved with Young Thug, I think that Diddy thinks that will help him in the long run to have somebody like Brian Steele on his team, and he's trying to build the best defense team that he can build. Right now, I can't name an attorney hotter than Brian Steele, so it makes sense. I don't think this is going to ruin Brian Steele's reputation. It may make people look at him a little funny because they don't like Diddy and they've pre-convicted Diddy, but at the end of the day, the worst that is going to happen is they're going to lose this case and it'll just be a giant L on Brian Steele's record. Best case scenario, Diddy beats it and Brian Steele will probably be catapulted to a whole new level of fame that he's never experienced before, because he'll have 2 wins back to back representing high profile people. Those are the 2 outcomes for this. That's my thoughts on it and what I think, but man, y'all gotta let me know what y'all think about all this in the comments down below. Anyways, that's basically it for the video, guys. If you enjoyed the content, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe, tap the notification bell so you get notified every time I upload a video. As always, it's been fun rocking with y'all, man. I'm out.